Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our paving webinar this morning. My name is Robert Robledo, and I'm your Executive Director here at the Rental Housing Association. Really appreciate your membership, and I hope you all read your email yesterday. We just launched our new and improved website. Check it out. I'm going to put the link in the chat box. You can also view that at your leisure, but I hope you'll be as excited as we are. And on the call with us this morning too is Sandy Moore, our new Director of Membership here at the RHA.
Hi all.
Also, oh, sorry, Sandy. We also will be recording this session and we will post it on our new website. And just as an FYI, our first newsletter of 2021 will be coming out here probably within a week or two. So also check that out. We've rebranded it and really just pushing on our marketing. So with that, I want to turn it over to a good friend of mine who I've known for I'm going to age us, Dan, many years. Dan Fernandez, actually met him years ago when I was working in another trade association, and he was working somewhere else. So we've stayed in contact, and I'm excited to hear about his paving seminar this morning. So Dan, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And I'm really actually honored to be here. I always love sharing about pavement maintenance. It's a passion of mine. I've been in the paving business since the 90s. I've been in construction since the 80s, and I started in construction right out of high school and went right into the trades, and I've never left. So, but I've been involved in asphalt paving since 95, and I've pretty much done everything you can do in the business. I have, run crews. I've done the work. I have project managed. I've been an estimator. I am on the marketing side and also business development. So I've pretty much run the full gamut of all the different things you can do. And, I have to say, I love the smell of asphalt. So, and it's just kind of a weird thing that unless you were an asphalt person, you wouldn't understand. And you might think it's kind of weird, but it's true for me. So anyway, I've been with Tarc now for about 5 years. And I got fortunate enough to come up with this, idea, and they let me run with it. So I really appreciate that. And it's truly one of the things I love most about my job. So anyway, there will be some time for questions and answers at the end. So Robert, you're going to I think you were going to maybe do like the chat, I believe, or, if you have some questions, we can talk about things, just save them for the end of the presentation, and then we can go over things.
Yep.
So I'm going to get started. And like I say, I'm with Tarc Construction, and we're an asphalt paving company. We also do concrete and steel, but this is focused on asphalt paving surfaces. So I'm going to start with, just what asphalt is. So asphalt is made up of several things, but its main components are, asphalt cement, and then it has an aggregate in it, which is usually a stone. It has some sand in it, and the aggregates are different sizes. So you can have the most typical for apartment complexes, residential streets is 1/2 inch medium, and that just means the half is the size of the aggregate. And then it's all mixed at a facility, which we call an asphalt plant or an HMA plant, hot mix asphalt plant. And it's put into a big hopper. It's heated up to a very high, degree, usually about 400 degrees or more. And then it gets mixed together and then thrown in the truck, and it's taken out of there. The 3 enemies of asphalt are water, sun, and weight. And water is a big one. When I first got into the business, I was told 3 words: drainage, drainage, drainage. And so that's something that's very important, and we'll go over that as we get into it. Important fact about asphalt, that it is a flexible surface. So, you can tell, like if you were jogging and you were on a freshly paved road, you could actually feel it. It feels a little spongy. And then if you went onto the sidewalk, you would feel how the sidewalk is concrete and it's more rigid. So Once asphalt starts to lose its oil component, it becomes dry and brittle. And this is one of the things that leads to cracking on the surface, what we call the wearing course. So assessing your pavement, this is my goal, is to give you some information. So, if you walk out onto your property and you look at the pavement, you're going to have an idea of some of the actions that need to be taken. And you are the first line of defense, because if you own or manage pavement, you need to know when to call somebody to come out and take a look at it. And so we always recommend inspecting your pavement surfaces 1 to 2 years, every 1 to 2 years. It's never a good idea to just let it go on and on, because with pavement, sometimes there's things that can be done to increase the longevity of it, but they have to be done earlier than when things start to look really bad. So it's very important that you have a trusted professional come out and inspect the pavement surfaces 1 to 2 years. Most all the contractors don't charge for that. We don't charge to come out and just give you an estimate or help you with budgeting and doing long range planning and things like that. When we're assessing the pavement, we're able to identify areas of concern that may need attention. So that's what you want to be looking for. Is, it's pretty obvious sometimes, and we'll go over some of those. But it's really, those are the areas that need to be identified and mapped out, so that you know what you're looking at as far as, any repairs and things of that nature. So, and that's always good to have somebody that, that you trust, that can give you those opinions and really give it to you straight. So let's go over some of the different types of pavement surfaces, the conditions that you'll find at properties that you may manage or, own. So this particular slide, you can see that the pavement surface is starting to show some oxidation. And so as you can see, as my slide has fresh pavement around it, it's nice and black with a lot of oil. This pavement is getting oxidated, and it's happening from the sun. And so it's in good shape. You don't see any cracks, but it's ready for seal coat. It's very thirsty asphalt, I would say, right here. So here you see the next slide. We've got something that would need to be seal coated as well, but you can see the cracks that are starting. And this is a typical crack that you'll get. This area here, between here and this side over here, was a mat that was laid. So this is a joint that was running down the middle when it was originally paved. And so what happens sometimes is, when the road's being paved, and the mat's being laid down, you have to do it in sections. And so if this edge right here cools down too much, you'll get the second mat that comes up to it will not adhere as well, or bind or bond to it. And so you'll start to get some movement there, and it'll cause a crack. This particular slide, you can see you've got the oxidation still. You have some cracks that are starting to come in. Longitudinal and transverse cracks is what we call these. And so this needs crack fill and seal coat. And then you can see the progression here: crack fill, seal. This is a good candidate for asphalt overlay as well. One of the tricks with asphalt overlaying is that, you don't want to let it go too far, because these cracks will start to reflect up through. And this is the wearing course that we're looking at, but you can see how the cracks are starting to form patterns. And that is because the top surface has not been sealed. And so it's unable to flex. So as things like garbage trucks, heavier vehicles roll over it, they're starting to cause some fatigue cracking, and they start to connect. And as these cracks, they have one job, and that is to open and close. Okay, so they are constantly moving with the cold, that's expansion and contraction with cold and heat. So during the day, they close up a little bit when the asphalt gets warmed up, and then at night, they open back up. So this is a candidate for crack fill, seal, and overlay. And now we're really getting into some failure here. So this is poor condition. So this is, you'll hear me talk about alligator cracking. This looks like the back of an alligator, and that's why we call it. It's actually fatigue cracking and block cracking. It starts to crack down into smaller blocks. And the next stop is, on its way to this, where you can see all of the areas here are starting to get smaller and smaller, and they're actually opening up. And so now this asphalt no longer has any flexibility in it. And you can see that this area over here was repaved at some point. So all of this area is now failing, and this is getting close to a pothole, which is the next stop. But it's in very poor condition. Now this has failed completely. So you can just see these slides are designed to just show you that natural progression. If nothing was done to this property, this is where it's headed. Now, one of the things I want to mention about this is you can see there's a couple of different patches that were done here. These are just random pictures that I've taken of different sites that I've been on. And this area here, you can see this is brand new pavement that was done. And then this was a patch that was done at another time. And these areas here, this is what I like to call tripping over a dollar to pick up a dime. If you don't take care of this, the water is actually draining into this area here. And so there's obviously a drain inlet or a gutter that the water is supposed to get to. But the water that is coming across this area here is not getting there. It's going down into the subgrade. And so it's going to affect this patch fairly quickly. You can see how it's starting to bleed into this one already. And then this is very failed. So somebody has actually attempted to do a skin patch, what we call a skin patch. And that is that when this was a pothole, they just threw some asphalt in this area here just to get it, just to put a Band-Aid on it basically, but it actually worsened it, because now by putting asphalt in this area and trying to skin patch it, the water is even getting stuck more in this area. So this is draining across, and you can see you have this high landscape area over here. And so it's very nice and green. So there's a lot of water running underneath this road. And, so as this lawn is being watered, or if it's raining, but mostly from the landscaping, it's coming down underneath and absorbing into the native and the base rock underneath and moving across the road. And this is probably a path of travel for a garbage truck. And so as that softens, that's another thing that's happening here and causing a lot of this failure. And there we go. That's it. That is toast right there. So, all parking lots, all pavement surfaces have a drainage pattern that they follow. And when the asphalt starts to fail, this is extremely bad. This is actually right next to a garbage dumpster that's right here. So what we have here is we have an area, water's not releasing and getting out of here. It's actually acting as the drain. And as the garbage truck comes rolling up along here, it moves very slow. And so garbage trucks come in at about 50,000 pounds. And that's really the biggest culprit that you have that is going to be affecting your pavement. And so as it rolls through this area here that has now been completely softened, and you can see, probably the garbage truck made this track right here because most cars would try to go around that. But since the garbage truck wants to be lined up here, this is definitely not a good thing. This particular job too, we ended up doing this patch. The asphalt was only, I think it was about 1.5 inches thick. So I know that whoever had done the repairs at some point did not sell these folks 1.5 inch removal and replacement, but that's what they got. So somebody had pulled the fast one on them here. So that's another thing we'll talk about a little further in is, adherence to standards and making sure that when you do get work done, that you're getting what you paid for. And so this area failed very quickly, and you can see the asphalt's very thin there. And that's just not going to hold up with a garbage truck coming through. So one of the most important things for asphalt is, the way you try to control cracks. Cracks are going to happen in the asphalt. They're going to happen in concrete as well. But these are some different types of distress that you're going to experience with asphalt. So cracking, we talked about fatigue. That's what we call the alligator cracking, block cracking when it starts going down and turns into smaller blocks. And then longitudinal and transverse cracks are the long cracks that you'll see that a lot of times are from paving seams. And then also from doing patching in a property. And then reflection cracking happens. Asphalt is laid down in layers. And so a lot of times when you do an asphalt overlay, you'll get reflective cracking. So those cracks that were covered start to open and close, and then they start to reflect through the new asphalt. And then different other types of distress signals are rutting, which you'll see a lot close to garbage bins, where the pavement is actually shoved over and creates a big rut. Depressions are always a thing to be watching for because they're going to hold water whenever the grade has been compromised, the slopes. Heaving as well. Asphalt it's a flexible surface, so it actually will push, and you'll see heaving sometimes happen by like a rigid hard surface, which could be a gutter or a sidewalk or some type of concrete pad that's stable, rigid, and solid, and the asphalt will heave up against it and move. And then just failures as well. And then disintegration is raveling and potholes. So a lot of times you'll see, I see it because I'm an asphalt nerd, but the surface of the asphalt, when you see lots of like what looks like sand, and you start to see the aggregate exposed, that's raveling. The asphalt is raveling. The fines are being they're being separated from the actual asphalt. When it was originally laid, all of those things are bound together with I'm going to use the word adhesives, like a glue that keeps the rock, the sand, and the oil all together. It's a binder that's in the oil, and once that gets broken down by water, it'll start to ravel on you. And so there it is. So I've been talking about alligator cracking. So this was a beautiful property that I looked at. It's not an apartment complex. It was a pilot truck stop. And it gives you, an example of why we use that term alligator cracking, because the surface of the asphalt looks like the back of an alligator. So some more warning signs of distress and failure with asphalt surfaces is discoloration. So once you see that asphalt starting to gray out, that means it's time for seal, because that surface has become rigid and it can no longer flex and it will crack. And it starts with a very fine crack that you don't even notice unless you're really out there, looking with the microscope. There's these little tiny micro cracks that happen, and those start to open and close, and they just increase in size over time. So whenever you see the asphalt discolor, it's time to, consider seal coating it. Fatigue and cracking and block cracking, we talked about the heaving and shoving. It looks like somebody's shoving a sheet over. That means that the asphalt is moving and there's potential base failure there, settling, and then obviously potholes. If you own property, if you manage property, you don't want to see that. We get there and we know it's not a good thing for you. It's a good thing for us because it means that something's going to get done there, But what we want to do, and our goal is always to help people increase the longevity of their asphalt. So, me personally, I don't like it when I show up and see a property that hasn't been taken care of. But it is a good thing for us if we get the work, then it's, we get to help you. But always after you've gotten work done, you should have a plan in place, which we'll talk a little more about a little later in the presentation. But planning is critical with asphalt maintenance. Now here, this is something that, I learned when I was fortunate to work with somebody who really understood this when I was just getting into the business. When you start to take drive lanes like this and you start to chop them up, you create cold joints along the edge. So what a cold joint is that when we take this asphalt out to do this patch right here, this edge on this side of the asphalt that's left in place is cold. So we call it a cold joint. This asphalt on this side is warm. This joint is never going to be, you can get a good bond on it, but it's never going to be the same as if it was being laid up next to asphalt that was still warm. So when you see this area from here to here, how it's failing, for the most part, I even prefer if this area was still okay and it could last for a little while longer, and you were to say, I don't want to take this asphalt out. Why are we taking that out? It still looks like it's in pretty good shape. Well, the issue with that is that you have a cold joint running right down the center of the drive lane. So you're getting a lot of weight transfer there, and that's going to start failing. You're always going to get failures off of a patch. It's going to start happening because this is a nice new, patch that was done. It's an older patch, but it's good, flexible asphalt. And then as the vehicles are rolling over this asphalt, they hit this older, more brittle edge, and it starts to crack. And so whenever possible, the best way to do this is to actually do this entire thing all the way across from parking aisle to parking aisle and replace the entire drive lane all the way across. And then just have your one cold joint running across the main area, the drive lane where the majority of the traffic is going, right across here. And then you can marry in a new patch to this asphalt. If you have your cold joint running down along the edge of the parking aisle, it doesn't get as much stress because a car, typically not a truck, there's no garbage truck or delivery truck that's going to ride over that. It's just going to be a lighter vehicle that's going to pull into that area and cross over that cold joint. So that's going to last a lot longer. The parking aisles are going to fail at a much lesser rate than that drive lane is, where you're getting all the majority of your traffic. So maintenance categories, crack sealing is one. Different techniques that are used. We always blow out the cracks. You want to clean the cracks real well. Routing is not a technique you're going to see a lot of, but it is something that's used. That's where you actually open up the crack even more with a piece of equipment to be able to really get crack fill in there. It's not something that's commonly used here. So we usually will just typically blow the crack out, make sure it's nice and clean, and then the crack seal can really adhere inside of it. Just laid out hot. We always use hot rubberized crack fill. They do make some other types, a cold pour, which is not near as effective. Resurfacing is another one. So you can do an asphalt overlay of asphalt where you're actually adding another layer on top of the original asphalt. You really have to pay attention to that because you can create drainage issues when you do overlays. It has to be well thought out. You can't just show up on a problem and be like, yeah, sure, we can overlay this. You really need to look at the drainage pattern and make sure that by elevating that asphalt to a new elevation, even though it's only a couple of inches, you can affect the drainage patterns. Mill and overlay is always a good one. That's where we actually take the original asphalt down a little bit, maybe an inch to an inch and a half, and then overlay within that. It maintains your existing grades or slopes. Drainage corrections. If you're having drainage issues on a property, there are things that can be done if they're not already in place. That has to be, spec'd and scoped, but you can add valley gutters, trench drains, drain inlets, You always want to make sure that, especially going into winter time, that you're checking your drain inlets to make sure that they're clear of debris and that they're working properly. And then full on reconstruction includes, asphalt repairs, base repairs, where we go down, we take out not only the asphalt, but we take out some of the base. And then there are things called, it's called cement treated base, the CTB, or a combination of. So cement treated base is a great option if you've got soft soil or you have a lot of base failure. It's where we actually mill the asphalt off, and then we pulverize the base rock and the soil below and add concrete to it. So this works well in situations where you really have something that, the soil is not very good. And it's a pretty extensive process, but once it's done, you really get a great product at the end. And then obviously seal coating is one of the most important steps when it comes to maintaining asphalt surfaces. Let me take a quick drink of water here. So the idea is to try to get as long out of the asphalt as possible, but you need to remove and replace as needed. This is just a picture I took to show you, some of the equipment, depending on the size of a property. That's a milling machine, and that actually is it's like an asphalt dinosaur. It likes to eat asphalt, and it mills that asphalt down and puts it in the back of a truck to be hauled to the plant. And so the good thing about asphalt milling is that it's actually it's actually recycled. So that those millings, so whenever you're doing a job and we're removing and replacing a parking lot or taking out a roadway, we're actually taking those millings back to the plant and they're reusing it. They're creating new base rock, which gets used in freeway construction. It's a recycled base. As long as it meets certain requirements, it can be used as that. It's used for, old farm roads, things of that nature. And then the really good millings will actually be put back into the asphalt mix. So on a per ton basis, asphalt is the most recycled product in the world. So black is the new green. I don't know. I don't think so, but it's a product that really, does get reused. So it doesn't just go into a landfill somewhere. So pavement maintenance plan, this is critical. I just, a lot of times people don't maybe know what to do with the pavement, and there might be other issues going on with the property. And so the pavement might get neglected or the maintenance may get deferred. But it always starts with a site assessment. So, when you're coming up with a plan, you need to have an action plan. We need to assess the current condition to understand what can be done, not only immediately, but in the future. So you have an idea. And then the category of work to be performed, depending on the condition of the asphalt, what are the categories that can be performed? Obviously, if asphalt gets to a certain point, there's certain things that they're useless. They're not going to work. So, we have to determine what items are going to be taken care of, and then cost estimates, which are really important to you all, I'm sure, and then any future budget requirements. And that's something that, we take a lot of pride in helping people with their budget needs, so they can figure out, even if they don't have the money to take care of it, or maybe they have the money, but they're not going to take care of it. So they know what kind of money they're going to need to really bring the asphalt up to snuff. And then this shows you on pavement deterioration. This is an unmaintained surface. This is typical. Sometimes things will last longer, but you'll see on this curve that it lasts about 75% of its life, somewhere in that 10 to 12 year. And then it starts to drop dramatically. If nothing has been done to it, there is a point when it's, when it gets to a certain point, it's going to begin to fail very quickly. And that can drop down very quickly, and you'll get somewhere in between about 16 to 20 years out of that asphalt. And that's if you just laid it brand new and didn't do anything to it. And it also, there's a lot of factors that come into play there with that, as far as the amount of traffic, the amount of, heavy traffic that's on that pavement. So let's talk about asphalt overlays a bit here. I did this little slide here to show you just kind of what's going on underneath. If you look down here where my cursor is, that's the subgrade. So that's the native soil that was originally compacted before the pavement was put in. And then you've got an aggregate base layer that's laid on top of that. And for residential communities, it's usually somewhere around 6 inches, maybe 4 inches, but 6 inches is a pretty typical. And then you have your first original layer of asphalt here, which is the most typical in residential construction is 2 inches, which I'll tell you, that's not really adequate in today's times. And one of the reasons is that not only is the garbage truck coming in there, but now we're in the, not just the COVID situation, which increased the amount of deliveries that are going onto your properties. So we have UPS, we have a FedEx coming through at a much higher rate than before, and that will only increase. So it's something to think about when you're doing repairs. You do have to make things more durable and strong and increase the repair thickness in order to really have it hold up to some of the things that are going on. The other thing is that we no longer just have, I remember the days when it was just one garbage truck rolling through, and there was some rather large humans, throwing these big cans into the garbage, and there was only one that came through. Now we have 3, and they come twice a week sometimes. So that's a lot more heavy weight on that pavement, putting stress. So when you're thinking about doing an overlay, what happens is a lot of times we'll use a petromat that'll go in between. That's a strengthening layer. It gets tacked, and then you put the asphalt on top of that. So one of the really important things about, asphalt overlays is checking drainage. Because by adding this little bit of asphalt here, if it's not well thought out, this can slow water down and create other problems. Grinding around all the flow lines. So making sure that, things that are coming up to meet another fixed elevation there's grinding that needs to have, we call it transition grinding, so that there's thickness there. You don't want to have things taper down to nothing, which a lot of people will not know that it's being done. But when it tapers down to nothing, that means at that edge there's no asphalt thickness there, and it starts to have a problem there. And then treating failures is very important before you do an overlay as well. Sweeping and cleaning the surface, making sure that the surface is very good, and then applying a hot oil fabric and tacking all of that milled surface. Always doing a minimum of 1.5 inches of asphalt over the top. You can do up to 2 inches. That's the most typical, but trust me when I say this, I have gone on job walks with property owners and managers and seen petromat with about 1/4 inch of asphalt over the top. And I just pick it up and I put my tape measure and let them know that this is just an incorrect application here. Somebody did, obviously, once again, they didn't sell you 1/4 or 1/2 inch overlay. They probably, on their paperwork, it said 1.5 inches, but what they got was 1/2 inch. And so that's one of the reasons that would fail. And then compacting the new asphalt correctly, and then restriping. So, and this shows you, this is a mill and overlay. So you can see, as long as you have enough asphalt underneath, that it has to, in order to do this application, it has to be a certain thickness underneath. You can't do a mill and overlay of 1.5 inches if there's only 1.75 inches or 2 inches of asphalt there. You have to have a few more inches there so that this surface under here has a good solid foundation. But this is a great way to get rid of the wearing course, the top course, and and then maintain all of your elevations. So wherever there's an issue with drainage, this is a good option to do an 1.5 mil, and then you overlay, you tack that surface in there, and then you overlay it. And you also get rid of all of those surface cracks so you won't have the reflective cracking. And then here we've got seal coat benefits. So, seal coating is one of those things that is like, I always like to say, it's like putting lotion on dry cracked skin. It moisturizes the surface and puts some flexibility back in that surface. It also reduces, long-term repair cost, protects from oxidation, and also oil spills. So if you have a property and cars are leaking oil, that oil is going to soak into the asphalt. When you have good seal coat on top of that, it will prevent that for a while. And then it protects against water penetration and raveling. It increases the flexibility. We've gone over that, and enhances the property's appearance. That's one of the benefits. It's function before style with seal coating, but it does add and make things pop when you have a nice looking surface that's been freshly sealed. One yet? Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so the material is made up of, it's an oil-based material. It has fillers. It has usually sand. In our part of the world here, we use sand in there. You mix water in with it, and we typically always add latex rubber, which gives it just a little bit more flexibility to stretch with the movement that we get, and the differences in heat and cold. And then you can add sand to it if you have a really rough surface. We can actually add sand to the seal at the job, and that's usually an extra charge for that. But that works very well if the asphalt has a lot of exposed aggregate. And then protecting your investment, you can see, this is just showing you some seal coat that went over these. Once again, these are the different layers of the pavement. This particular pavement, you can see this was overlaid at some point, but you can see how the cracks start, and they start to go through that overlay at some point, any cracks that are underneath. But seal coating is a really beneficial step. It's like, when you're seal coating your asphalt, you got to look at it as like changing the oil in your car. You don't want to miss oil changes. And so I recommend, the manufacturers will typically recommend 2 to 4 years to seal. It can go longer than that sometimes, but that's one of the critical things about having somebody come out and inspect the pavement to say if it's time to seal. If you already have a pavement maintenance plan in place, you'll know, okay, I need to seal around this time, but you still need to have it inspected to see how real time, what the condition changes are. And then seal coating, very important to, it's a big impact on the property. So you'll get a lot of, it's an inconvenience. I mean, you're displacing people, they can't drive over it. So it's, even though it's usually pretty quick, it causes a lot of havoc for folks. So it's very important to notify. We always help with that process ourselves. Our company will help with the notifications. And then make sure the irrigation is off before you do a seal. It's very important. You don't want the irrigation popping on before or after, because it will start to wash the areas and wash the seal down into the drain inlets and the gutters, and can cause damage. Knowing when that trash pickup is, that's important. So we don't want to have a freshly seal coated road and then have the trash truck coming that next morning. So we have to schedule it around the trash pickup times. And then, is anybody moving out? The last thing we need is somebody, we get there and there's a huge moving truck there and somebody's planned on moving out. Tow away signs need to be posted as well, because a lot of times people will ignore or just forget. So it's definitely critical that tow away signs are posted. And, as the owner or manager, you're the only ones that can authorize tows. So we have to work with you all to make sure that we can get cars out of the way. And then having a tow service scheduled and on standby, because if we show up at 8 o'clock to start cleaning and there's a bunch of cars there and people don't get them out of the way, a lot of time will go by and we'll start losing our window of opportunity to be able to get the seal down and get it cured in time to open it up by, when it's been scheduled to open up. And then other construction trades. I've had this happen. There's a roofing job that's going on the same day that we're supposed to seal. So it's really important to make sure those things are not scheduled on top of each other, especially since we're occupying big sections of the parking lot and limiting access. And then consistent coverage. This just shows you a seal coat machine and what it's doing. It has squeegees and the oil comes out of it. We have a big tanker that's usually placed somewhere close to the job or on the site. And then we fill these seal coat machines and that's spread with the squeegees. And then we'll also have people doing it manually. This is a really important one that I like to mention. It's scuff marks, because I'll get this a lot, and I always try to make sure, and our team always explains this prior. If we could leave a road or a parking lot closed for 3-4 days, the scuff marks would be much less. But it's typically, a lot of folks will want us to open up the area by the end of the day. We always go 24 hours, so it has to be closed till the next morning. That gives the cool evening time to help that asphalt seal coating set up. But you will get scuff marks, and as long as it's not going all the way down to the existing asphalt, it's fine. It looks a little unsightly, but it's normal. And as the asphalt sealant, as it cures, they'll start to fade and go away. And one of my tricks I always do when somebody complains to me about the scuff marks is I go out there, and I've ruined many pairs of shoes, just putting my foot down and actually scooching it along the ground to show, and it kind of goes away. And so, but it is something that can happen because, we'll open up the lots after 24 hours. So striping is what I want to talk just a little bit about right now. This is the detail work that gets done. I call it the icing on the cake. And it's very important that the asphalt is, it's very important that you actually, are very clear and concise with your striping. This is how people identify where they're supposed to go on a property. So this is one of the things that will happen sometimes when you're doing seal coating. If the parking lot layout has been changed, it will actually bleed through and it'll get confusing, and you'll have this kind of scenario sometimes that will confuse folks, and you won't maximize the parking in these areas, and can lead to safety issues. So the right relationship, understanding clear goals, what your goals are with the property, knowing one of the things that happens sometimes is people tell me, hey, we're going to sell this property, or we're holding on to this property, and so we really need a long-term plan, or I'm gonna put this place on the market and I just need to make it look good, and so I don't want you to give me the whole do everything right. We'll always go out there with the intention to do the right job and figure it out what's going to be best for the property and the health of the asphalt. So meeting those goals, time commitment to one another, and keeping an open and honest communication, and having trust as the foundation. As a customer, you deserve, now this is a big one for me, fast and responsive correspondence. So this is just, calling people back when you need answers. Your issue is the most important thing to you. Everybody's busy. So, it's important that you're getting timely responses back from the folks that you're working with, the vendors, knowledgeable sales personnel, people that have been trained correctly and know what they're looking at and know how to properly scope work, because that's a super important key element for you're looking to this professional to really give you and direct you and guide you on options. So the benefits of different approaches, options, that's one of the things that I like to give people. I understand there's budgets, and sometimes these things don't fit the budget, but so my recommendation is always to, whatever you're going to do it right, even if you have to phase it. So you don't, if you can't afford, or you don't have the money in the budget, I don't like to say can't afford, but the money's not in the budget for doing these repairs, do whatever you're going to do correctly, and then have a plan to phase in the next set of repairs, in a year or 2 years, instead of saying, well, let's just try to do and make this whole thing work, with what we have, and take care of the whole property. Always understand you can phase these things over time. Proof of adherence to standards, knowing that if you are signing a contract that says I'm getting 4-inch removal and replacement, that you're actually getting that when the job happens. And there's a way that we can document that for you, even if a lot of people don't like to come on an asphalt project. We're there working, it's stinky, it's smelly, it's loud, there's all kinds of commotion and trucks and everything. And so it's not something you want to be walking right into this, construction zone. We can take pictures, we can document, we can draw string lines and put our tape and show that, hey, this is 4 inches, you paid for 4 inches, this is what you're getting. Here's a picture of the subgrade, it's properly compacted, so that you understand that you did get a good job if you weren't able to get to the site and look at it yourself. And then traffic control processes and phase maps. Really important, and I'm almost done here. I'm probably running just a little bit over, I apologize. But anyway, this is a site map that it's a large project, it's a big property, and I use it just because it's a little more complex than what might be done sometimes on a smaller, maybe an apartment complex. But the point is the detail, the attention to detail. And when I submit bids and my team submits bid, the estimators that we like to make sure that we have good detail, so you understand. Some people don't even look at this stuff, but some are very interested. So I'm not concerned with somebody that may not pay attention to this too much. I want them to have it in case they are interested in knowing. It's showing us, where the concrete repairs are going to be done. These valley gutters are coming out. They're going to be poured back at 6 inches. There's some concrete curb and gutter that's also being done in that, which is right over in this area. And then these are the R&Rs. This is 4-inch asphalt repair. All this green area is coming out at 4 inches. Okay. And then this red area, all of these areas, which all of these patches are numbered. So I actually have square footage there. And you're not always going to get this level of detail. I'm a little bit, like I said before, I'm an asphalt nerd, so I really put a lot of effort into really detailing things. But it makes it easy to make decisions when okay, this is what here's the proposal, and here's the site map showing me exactly what's happening. And then you can see the seal coat area is all high, it's all outlined with a dashed line, and it shows exactly what we're going to be doing there, square footage, and how many lineal feet of crack fill are going to be done. And then a phase map. So this is super important for your tenants, for people to understand what's being done, when it's being done, the dates, and to have a good idea. This is something we can post with your notifications. We can send you this and it can go out with your notifications, so that when people are asking, we always make ourselves available to answer questions, because sometimes there's things that it's just easier to have us talk to the folks and let them know where we're going to be and when, so they know, okay, I need to have my areas getting done here, phase 1, Monday, 9/16. Okay, my car can't be in that area. So, that's a really important element of what we do. And I want to thank everybody. My presentation is done. I appreciate your time very much. And just real quickly, the Tarc is a family-owned business. We've been in business since 2003. We're at about 70 employees now. We have 3 locations. We actually work all over the state of California. We do everything in-house: asphalt paving, concrete, seal coating, striping, ADA upgrades. One thing that I have not added on here, we actually do steel construction too. So we have a steel division. But anyway, so I appreciate everybody's time and thank you so much.
So Dan, we do have a question in the chat.
Okay.
And it is from Andy, and he is asking, is it reasonable to seal coat part of a parking lot one day and then do the rest of it maybe a few days later?
Yes, that is fine. So if you're going to do what, if you're going to seal coat, and if you want to leave that area closed for more than 24 hours, that's always a good idea to leave the other section. We can space it out. For us, it's typically easier for us, but that doesn't matter if we've mowed in and we can just go in consection. We can do it one area and then we move to the next area and then to the next area. But it's no problem to say, okay, we've got 3 phases. We want to have a day or two in between the phases. Okay, so that is absolutely possible, and that can be all set up, and sometimes that will affect the bid just a little bit because of the mobilization of the equipment. So
Okay.
typically, but as long as there's a place to, stage equipment and things of that nature, it's done on a case by case basis. But the answer is yes, you can do that, and it does make sense.
So Dan, when someone's thinking about repaving their lots, what would be a best practice that you would recommend to them? Like they should start like how much time before they actually get the paving started? What would be that lead time that you think they should have
That
when
it all depends on the time of year. And so one of the things that I am always pushing for is get your projects planned early in the year, because what happens in the paving business is that we get slammed. we,
okay.
we, I don't know how else to say it, but we get slammed. And as summer, because people are not thinking about paving projects in the wintertime. And then the spring rolls around and they're like, some people are very on top of it and some people are going to wait. And so we have a window to seal coat. Paving's a little different. We can do paving all throughout the year. But seal coating, we can only do from April. We just started sealing because the weather is getting a little bit nicer right now, but April to about October. And it gets iffy even when we get into October. And I'll just, real quickly, one of the reasons is the pattern of the sun. So the sun goes over our area and in a different trajectory as time goes on. So you start to get shorter days, which gives the areas that might get shaded, more, and it's harder for the seal coat to actually dry and cure. So always start thinking about it early and get on people's books early, because you actually will get, sometimes the asphalt plants are giving out better pricing in the beginning of the year. Asphalt and seal coat's an oil-based product, and so it can fluctuate in price. And coming out of the winter season, a lot of asphalt plants are hungry. The paving companies are hungry to get out there and get after it. And so it's usually a little bit more aggressive pricing. And as you move into the busier time, then people start getting filled up. We really actually do the lion's share of our work in the third quarter of the year is when
Oh
we
wow.
do most of our work. But it does help to get it planned much earlier so that you can get on the books and make sure you get, the job done.
It sounds like Tarc really goes above and beyond too, because hearing your presentation, it's kind of like a partnership that you have. You're really leading the client through the whole process.
Yes.
Um, where's that come from? I mean, that you don't typically hear that from vendor members. So, what instilled that in you to do that?
We've been doing this a long time. The owner of Tarc is a friend of mine, and I've known him for a long time, even when I've been at other paving companies. And we care about the people that we work with. And we want to make sure that we not only are educating them, I always lead with education, and we train our people that way. So it's a part of our culture. And I can honestly tell you, we have a meeting every Tuesday morning. And in that meeting, the owner always talks about getting back to people, helping people. And so he's building a culture, and that's the way companies are. And then we're trying to find like-minded people that will come in and embrace that culture and that core belief, align their core beliefs with us. Some people that they don't end up continuing to work with us. But we want to make sure we're putting our best foot forward and we're helping folks out. And like I said before about the failed asphalt, it's great. I come walking on a property and I go, oh my gosh, they haven't done anything. This asphalt is tore up. It's a big money job, but it's not what I like to see. I
Right.
want to know that, okay, they did everything and they increased the longevity of their asphalt. And so once we get our hands on a project, our plan, And our goal is to take care of that property for years to come, because, you know, it's very hard to get a customer and it's very easy to lose one.
Great. There is another question in the chat. So how far out does your company go? Angels Camp area. They have a road committee in their subdivision. So what would
Yes.
be, go ahead.
We like I said before, we're California. We will go anywhere in California, but Angels Camp is actually is perfect. You know, we do jobs all the way from, I've done jobs from Weed, California, which the next stop is Oregon, all the way down to San Diego.
Wow.
But our most typical job is in the Greater Bay Area and a couple hours outside of the Greater Bay Area. A lot of those jobs that we do far away are for large clients like FedEx Freight. We're one of the only 3 contractors in the Western United States that works with FedEx Freight. So they take us all over, you know, the state and beyond. But
Okay.
Angels Camp is fine.
Awesome. And yes, Patricia, good to see you again. It's great to see you in our webinars. Patricia was asking if the presentation will be available, and yes, we did record it. So those of you that are on the call too, just as you know, we did record it and we will place it on our website. And give us about a day to do that. So are there any other further questions for Dan? Otherwise, we can let it feel like school. We can let everybody out early.
Well, is it 11:59?
It's 11:59 right now.
Oh my gosh, we're right on time. That was our goal, to get you out on time. So, and I
Good
appreciate
job.
the questions.
Yeah, so great job, Dan. I mean, just a wealth of information and knowledge, and thank you all for being on this morning. And again, look for that presentation to be placed. And if we can give a round of applause to Dan, that'd be
Thanks,
awesome. And really appreciate working with you, Dan. And yeah, go ahead, Cindy. I'm sorry. Did you? Oh,
No. I was just saying, great job, Dan. Thank you.
great job. So,
Oh, and
okay,
then
cool.
also we are going to send out a parting gift. So we have this, which is a nice, it's a notebook, which you
Awesome.
can kind of disappear right there with the background I have. And then we have a mouse pad too.
Awesome.
And so if you guys could get with Robert, you know, and then he'll get the information and we'll mail that to you.
Yep.
Okay.
You
And
got it.
that's just an appreciation for coming and listening to my presentation.
Awesome.
Generous, very generous.
Awesome. Well, thank you again so much, Dan, and
Okay.
everybody enjoy their day.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.